Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have a lot of updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kharkiv direction. Yet, during the previous night we haven't received any updates about the further status in Liptsi. There were just few posts from the Russian sources that the Russians are bombing Liptsi heavily with FAP 1500, 500, dealing significant damage to Ukrainian manpower, but even without any geolocations confirming this. Furthermore, the sources reported that the Russians managed to answer the village by the name of Zelene. If you remember, right at the beginning of the Kharkiv offensive, the Russians have already stated that they answered the village, but later we got confirmations that most likely there were no Russians in the area, and now we start continuing additional updates that just on the 23rd of May, the Russians answered the village and currently continue trying to improve their positions further to Neskuchne and Veselaya. When talking about Kharkiv itself, according to information we have, the recruiters in Kharkiv began forcibly mobilize the homeless as well as those who have problems with alcohol and drugs. And obviously, according to information we have, these people are sending to the line of combat contact without any, let's say, additional special trainings or military exercises. The Russians continue bombing and hunting the Ukrainian temporary positions, the Ukrainian drones, FPV drones operators, warehouses. On this video we can see the explosion in the territory of Kharkiv as a result of Russian missile strike. Now let's move further to Volchansk. We have a lot of very interesting updates from the territory. The Ukrainians managed to restore the bridge over the Pechenegi water reservoir. This is very important because the Ukrainians managed to do this very fast. I'll remind you that on the beginning of May, on the second day of the Russian offensive operation in Kharkiv, the Russians, as a result of missile strike, destroyed the bridge. So as you can see, this is the dam that was destroyed as a result of Russian fire, completely destroyed. We see this on the video, but now this is the fresh satellite picture. The Ukrainians managed to restore it, which is very important. So most likely the Russians would try to destroy the bridge once again, but it takes not so much time for the Ukrainians to let's say, repair it. Now let's move to Volchansk. As you can see, we have adjusted the map because we have enough of evidence confirming that there are still Ukrainian positions in the north of Volchansk, that the north of Volchansk is not like partly Russian territory and partly gray zone. The Ukrainians still control the citadel, the high-rise building area in the central part of the north of Volchansk, the most important citadel, the most important fortification area. The Russians are trying to storm the area, trying to bomb this territory with significant number of aviation bombs, source flamethrower systems. Furthermore, the Russians are trying to bypass this territory from the southwest and from the west, but we see that there are still a lot of job to do. Furthermore, the Ukrainians still control the industrial zone to the south. Most likely today we're going to receive more updates about the territory, so let's wait. Very interesting details are coming from the village by the name of Bely Kolodys. According to information we have, the Ukrainians concentrated significant number of forces. They have redeployed additional reserves to the area, and this is the area of the main concentration. And according to information we have, the Ukrainians are about to launch the Ukrainian counter-offensives in direction of Volchansk. Of course, the Ukrainians are not going to send their forces strictly directly to the northern part of Volchansk. They will try to attack the Russians from the eastern flank. And this is the reason why the Russians were destroying the bridges, because the Russians understand the possibilities of the armed force of Ukraine, and as I understand, the Russians want just to slow down the Ukrainians and not to allow them to be effective, mobile and flexible. Most likely during the next few days the Russians will continue destroying the bridges all over the line from Volchansk to the border, trying to reduce the Ukrainian mobility. Anyway, this is very interesting because according to information we have, the Ukrainians are planning these counterattacks just to prove that the failure with defense belt wasn't like a failure, and they managed, let's say, to do something, and now they just try to restore their own reputation by these counterattacks. Currently we don't know for sure whether the Russians are ready for these counterattacks because the garrison that the Russians redeployed on the borderlands was limited, so we'll see what is going to be next. Now we are moving further to the south in direction of Sporne. The Russians managed to improve their positions on the southwestern part of the village. The Ukrainian sources published the video of how they were FPV droning and bombing the Russians along this tree line. This tree line used to be under complete, let's say, Russian control, and now we see that as a result of some offensive that was missed by us, by everyone, the Russians managed to improve the territory. So somehow the Russians were attacking, let's say, along this tree line. They entered this tree line and managed to improve the foothold. This is very very important offensive because we see that the Russians' main target, the Russians' main goal, is to encircle the Ukrainians in this rich network of the fortification. This is the first Russian target, and the second thing the Russians are trying to achieve is to cut supply between the villages by the name of Avdiivka and Sporna, because the Russians just trying to finish the battle for the village as soon as possible. So very interesting. Now we are moving to Chasiv Yar direction. We still haven't received any geolocations or any other confirmations from different reliable mappers about the Russians cross the Siversk Donetsk-Donbass canal, so we are waiting for additional updates. But anyway, if it's true, this information will be confirmed today by other sources, and this is very important, probably the most important update that we are waiting to be confirmed. From the other side, the Russians continue clashes in the eastern Chasiv Yar. The Russians are sending more and more forces, the Russians using different types of weapon to destroy the Ukrainian positions. On this video, for example, we can see how the Russian helicopter destroyed the personnel carrier of the armed forces of Ukraine inside of Chasiv Yar. So the clashes in this area are very heavy. During the previous night, we haven't received anything additional from Klishchevka direction, but there were just few reports that Ukrainians abandoned their positions completely between Klishchevka and Andreevka. So all these fields currently are in the gray zone or under complete Russian control. Now we are moving to Avdiivka area. We have additional updates. The Russians managed to improve their positions between Berdychi and Novopokrovskaya. The Russians captured additional tree lines and getting closer and closer. The sources published the video of how the Russians were capturing the tree lines, were storming the Ukrainian positions. So this video is 100% confirmation of Russian control. Furthermore, we have the video. This attack was geolocated in this area. Later, the Ukrainian sources published the video of FPV drone strikes on the Russian forces in this stronghold. So based on these, let's say, videos, we have adjusted the map, and we see that the Russians are moving closer and closer, and most likely the Russians will continue advancing further to the west, trying to split the defensive armed forces of Ukraine between the villages Novoselovka Persha and the village by the name of Novopokrovska. So the clashes continues. Now we are moving to the south. We have additional updates from different mappers about the Russian complete control over Nitailova. Most likely today or tomorrow or just by the end of the week, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation will confirm completely the Russian control over the territory. So let's wait for this. The clashes activated in the town by the name of Krasnogorovka. Today the Ukrainian sources published the video of let's say the results of another Russian attack in the western part of the stronghold. The Ukrainians destroyed few Russian tanks and the Russians abandoned them. On this video we can see just destroyed tanks. There is no like heavy clashes or active phase of offensive, just the results of that offensive. So if we return back on map, most likely the Russians were trying to attack with tanks, something like this, with the purpose to enter this high-rise building area and to complete the encirclement or to continue the encirclement of the Ukrainians that located in the central part and the northeastern part, so in this area. So we see that the clashes continues. Now we are moving further. The Russians continue hunting and destroying the Ukrainian forces in Konstantinovka. A few more armored vehicles and personnel carriers were destroyed. So as we can see, the Russians are in the active phase of storming of Konstantinovka. They are still out of the town, out of the village, not in the, let's say, borders of the stronghold, but most likely soon the Russians will be able to enter. South Donetsk direction we haven't received anything, as well as from Rabotina, Zaporozhye, Kherson direction also nothing important. We got lots of very interesting updates from Ukraine itself. Ukraine started releasing the prisoners and they start sending them on the line of combat contact. You know that after the adoption of the total mobilization law, we see significant number of let's say soldiers and people who start joining the Ukrainian army, and soon, probably in 2-3 months, the Ukrainians will be able to concentrate the critical mass, and most likely the Ukrainians would try to start counterattacks. Furthermore, the United States of America reported that they are not going to make any limits, any restrictions on the use of, let's say, the US missiles. Congress did not put restrictions on the use of these weapons. They were talking about ATACMS. It's Jake Sullivan and your administration that has put the restrictions on these weapons. I talked to them. They cannot achieve victory with these restrictions that you have placed on them. So most likely the Ukrainians will continue attacking the Russian, let's say, territory, attacking the Russian mainly energy facilities, oil refineries, refinery, because as I understand, this brought significant results. There are lots of Russian oil refineries were destroyed, so the Ukrainians most likely would continue this process. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.